YouGov did a survey of Gen Z, and 28% of them had a favorable view of communism, not democratic socialism, straight communism. When we look at Mamdani, who voted for him wasn't blacks, wasn't Hispanics, it wasn't working class whites. It was
rich white.
Yeah, right. Okay. So, but hold on. So now I want to look at. I'm going to put two different trains of thought forward to you guys, and then I want you to argue it out. But and we can look at his policies, by the way. So if it's like no, I think his policies work, we can discuss that. What I'm simply going to say is they did it in New York in the 70s. There are direct parallels on policy, and it was a catastrophe. If the question is why do you care, it isn't just about New York for me. It's about all of these blue cities that we're seeing fall to policies that are similar. And in addition, and you know, go ahead and tell me I'm fear-mongering, and I just might be, but does this kind of democratic socialism ultimately lead, whether it goes there or not in America, to Mao's China, to Nazi Germany? I mean, Nazi Germany co-opted this with the National Socialist Party. You know, Venezuela, Hugo Chavez did this, and you've got Nicolas Maduro. So does it become that? Does it lend itself to authoritarian socialism down the road? Okay, hold it. You can crush it, by all means. Here are the two narratives, okay? So narrative one, these poor kids are disenfranchised. They're buried in debt, right? The American dream has failed them. Capitalism has failed them. They can't afford kids. They're priced out of the housing market. Cost of living has inflated exponentially faster than wages. I mean, we were just talking about this with the crew here today, how a studio apartment that would have cost me $800 when I was this kid's age is now $5,000. So that's obviously obscene. Wealth inequality is obscene. There's more billionaires than ever in history. Corporate power is undoubtedly unchecked. And democracy feels fraudulent when you can buy policy. Case one. Okay, makes sense for kids to be disenfranchised, but here's the problem. Rich white people voted for this guy. So then case two is that the machinery of ideology is existing in these Ivy League schools.
Yes.
And I read this article, I want to read this to you guys, just a part of it. The author's name is Ayan Hirsi Ali. Okay, 2 paragraphs, so bear with me. Today we don't have disciplines, we have studies. The curriculum itself serves as an indoctrination structure. Walk through any gender studies classroom and count the minutes before oppression becomes the central theme. Track how many lectures end with a condemnation of the patriarchy, white supremacy, or Western norms. The readings are curated for grievance. The discussions are steered toward activism, and critical thinking is welcomed only if it critiques the approved targets. The same structure exists across ethnic studies, post-colonial studies, queer theory, and of course, African studies. Mamdani's plan to target whiter neighborhoods with higher taxes stems from an ideology shaped by grievance-based programming. Lectures trace a line from colonialism to capitalism to modern inequality. So when Mamdani proposed higher taxes based on racial geography, he is performing a worldview in which demographics are destiny, guilt is inherited, and wealth redistribution is rebranded as liberation. It's not economic theory, but ideology made actionable as the classroom spills into City Hall. Which is it? Who wants to go first?
Well, I think there are two threads here at work.
Go.
Number one, these people are way too young to remember the dangers of the Soviet Union, the dangers of the CCP. They just have no recollection of it. It's not part of their institutional memory. And number two, I'm like partly ourselves.
You're 5 years old.
I know.
So wait, but
another thing is they've been through so much. Think about all that Gen Zers and younger millennials have been through. The 2001, the recession, the 2008 recession. They saw Wall Street take the country, they exploited the country, but not a single banker went to prison for it. Not a single person was held accountable for it. The subprime, thank you, Anna, the subprime mortgage crisis, Americans were hammered, but these fat cats just went off to their beach homes. They bought another yacht and they just got away with it.
Yes, Lindy, yes, Lindy. Keep preaching about this,
There was no accountability. Yes. We saw that, but it doesn't even end there. And then you have the inflation from it.
And I would never vote for Mamdani, though.
But you remember how dangerous the Soviet Union was. That was part of your most formative era, and they just didn't have that.
What if I did this to you, though? Because I know this argument. The argument is, oh, stop with your fear-mongering. This isn't Maoist China. This is why I can default to New York in the 70s, because we tried it and we tested it and it failed. But that's going to be the argument, right? Oh, baloney, it doesn't go there.
Yeah, but do you think they're going to straight out come out and say, hey guys, we're going full-blown communism? Or do you think they're going to baby walk you into it? Obviously, they need to have these social conditioning. They need to rely on emotive arguments. They know for a fact that the younger generation is struggling. And so they're preaching this message, hoping to latch onto them emotionally, and it's evidently working. And then from there, they can baby step you into these more extreme policies. We had this conversation around Mamdani last time. I know there was a little bit of tension there because, yes, it is 5 grocery stores, but I don't think they would come out and say, we're going to make every single grocery store government run. They're going to say what would be socially accepted, even by people on the other end of the spectrum. They'd be like, oh, okay, well, it's not that bad. That's how they condition you. They're not going to come straight out and say it.
I completely agree with you, Amy.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
One quick point.
Yeah, finish the thought.
I'm not a fan of Mamdani, but this guy is a master at communication.
Yeah, he's charismatic. Yeah,
absolutely. He is. And he hammered away affordability, and that's what people cared about the most.
It's not just him, guys. So ready? It's also Bernie who started this. It's AOC.
I'm against
and
all
that's
of
why
it.
I'd be calling AOC a socialist.
But
So-
she is a democratic socialist, and
yeah.
so is Bernie. And Karen Bass is saluting Castro, and then it was like, oh, shucks, I shouldn't have said it. But you did, homie, and you meant it. And you went to Cuba a bunch of
Gavin
times,
needs
and
to
you
let
suck, and
Congress
LA sucks.
So in the case of Karen Bass, there's a lot of talk, but let's focus on what she does with public funds in Los Angeles. We pay a lot in taxes. A lot has been spent specifically to help the needy in Los Angeles, but that money ended up getting funneled to nonprofits, NGOs that padded their pockets and stole from Los Angeles taxpayers.
It's exactly what happened in New York, corruption.
So let me just explain. Rather than focus on Mamdani and what he's likely to do, I wanted to kind of talk about your question of why it is that there is growing support for socialist policies. I always make this point because it's important to look back at history to see how previous successful politicians operated when they were confronted with something similar. FDR specifically implemented the New Deal to save capitalism because socialism was on the rise, communism was on the rise, and he saw that Americans, especially after the Great Depression, were more open to those systems of the economy because of the fact that they saw that inequality widen. We're currently experiencing something similar right now. So I'm just going to give you a few statistics here. So the top 10% of U.S. households, the top 10%, you want to know how much wealth they own, how much of U.S. wealth they own? They own 67% of U.S. wealth. So the next 40%, own 25% of the wealth.
Yeah.
The bottom 50%, meaning half of the country, only owns 2% of this nation's wealth. So when you see that inequality grow, when you see young people who want to work hard, who want to build a nice life for themselves, but they don't see an avenue in which to make that happen. They want to get married, they want to start a family, but they can't afford it. They want to buy a house, they can't afford it. They want to rent an apartment, but they can't afford it. So they're looking for anything else that will give them a decent life. And when you have crony capitalism, and when you have our lawmakers, both on a local and federal level, looking out for their donors, looking out for corporate interests, looking out for themselves, well, they don't care about what happens long term. Okay, they don't care about what happens to the American people, but more importantly, they don't care about what happens to capitalism, because you're going to see more of a revolt against a capitalistic society that essentially redistributes wealth from the bottom to the very top. And that's the reason this is happening.
This also happened in Iran when they threw out the Shah. It's because there was this inequality, and now you've got the Ayatollah, what you've got now. Like, I get it, and I'm going to ask
Same
for
thing happened in
solutions.
Cuba, by the way, under Batista, right? So when you have that inequality, that's when the people eventually, excuse my language, but the shit hits the fan.
Right.
Yeah.
And the masses who have nothing left to lose are willing to revolt. They're willing to engage in revolution. But our politicians are too stupid and self-serving to actually take care of our people, right? So look, they brought it upon themselves. One other thing that I'll just say is, When you have politicians accuse things that aren't Marxist of being Marxist just because they don't like it, or when they accuse people of being communist when they're not communist, there's a lot of boy who cried wolf behavior going on.
Yeah.
And then when the public actually has a situation in which, you know, there's a communist idea or communist candidate or whatever, no one's going to believe these politicians, right?
They said it's propaganda.
Everything's
All my
Marxist.
friends
Same thing with
everything's
Marxist,
talking to
yeah.
their like college-age niece or their, you know, their high school kid. The kid's like, oh, that's Cuomo propaganda. And listen, I get it. I know Cuomo sucked. It's bigger than Cuomo sucking, and that's why I'm trying to say who is leading on the left. It's the Bernies. It's the Squad. It's the AOC. It's this.
We used to have in this country, in my opinion, a far better system. So public colleges and universities used to be tuition free. Right? So there was an avenue in which if you wanted to get a higher education and not dig yourself into a massive hole of debt, you had an avenue. You go to a public institution, right? Private schools obviously are going to cost a lot more money. Those avenues are not really available to people anymore.
Yeah.
Obviously, healthcare every year becomes more and more broken, less and less affordable. I mean, think about the sandwich generation, right? The millennial generation that's currently dealing with raising children, which is astronomical, like in terms of costs. And then they have their ailing parents, and they're being confronted with a broken healthcare system in which they get no support, no help. So everyone's stretched thin, and they're looking for any solution, any change. And I just want to kind of put my cards on the table on this issue. We live in a mixed economy. It's becoming more and more privatized.
Yeah.
There used to be more public options for people, and those public options have been defunded and completely decimated. And so, again, if we want to save capitalism, the way you do it is by tackling crony capitalism, disenfranchised people who should be taken care of. Like, all of these issues have been neglected for so long, and they will continue to be neglected.
And there's structural issues that we should be addressing versus these policies that may... It's kind of like what we're talking about with the Big Beautiful Bill in the last episode. It's like immediate kind of relief. Long term, what are the repercussions of these things going to be? We need to be addressing the root cause of like financial literacy. Why don't we learn anything about financial literacy in school?
But also,
kids are literally intentionally set up.
But also greed.
fail.
I mean, also greed.
It is greed. It is. We live in a society. It's like the spirit of mammon. We literally worship the dollar. You're absolutely right. And yeah, I think that these socialist policies are not going to help. I would like to get into a deeper discussion, and we can loop back after Lindy, because I want to hear from you about what we were talking about with the Scandinavian versions of socialism. Because if we want to implement socialism here, then we need to have a real conversation about what actually makes it work,
right,
versus what it doesn't, versus what just sounds good on paper.
I got one other question for you, though.
To entrap Gen Zers into an ideology that they really don't understand the repercussions of.
Okay, hold on. You got all that, and I'm going to you, and I specifically have a question I want to lay at your feet, because it's not just kids, though. That's the problem, is that it's all these rich white people that can then leave, and I see, by the way, we've all seen all of the blue people from California. I'm in Nashville. I'm in Miami. I'm like, man, I hope you're voting different. I really hope so, because you're taking all of that shit you just left, and you left the working class with the mess you made, and you bailed out of New York.
That's so
and you
true.
bailed out of California. And so what's that?
Jillian, I love that you brought this up, because we saw the manifestation of this just a few months ago in Luigi Mangione. Remember the outpouring of support that he enjoyed? People were cheering him on.
Right.
This is a cold-blooded murderer.
Yeah.
Okay, the frustrations underlying, first of all, it's not justifiable. His actions were completely egregious and unforgivable. No one should be murdering people in the middle of the street. That's not okay at all. It never will be. However, that is separate and distinct from the issue of healthcare. That's 20% of our GDP, but we have third world outcomes for a first world country. It's completely unacceptable. And United Healthcare and Independence Blue Cross, these people they're essentially, it's a legalized fraud, taking advantage of the American people. And secondly, what do you think is going to happen when you have tech bro billionaires at your inauguration and places of honor, and the American people are nowhere to be found? You're literally in the Capitol Rotunda, and you shut out the American people. I know that's due to inclement weather, but still, the symbolic nature of that is so powerful. And we've seen time and time again, there's an empirical link between income inequality and political polarization, meaning that the greater the difference between the wealthy and the haves and have-nots, the more alienated and the more extreme society becomes. And that is why we've seen demagogues take advantage of economic crises to come to power. We see this time and time again with Hitler, Stalin, Mussolini. We see this all the time.
So I'll just add one more.
I want solves. I want solves, and I want to leave this one question with you on a solve. Winklevoss says let them have it. I kind of think let them have it.
I actually agree.
Let them have what they vote for.
Hold on. I actually totally agree. If we believe in democracy, and this is what the people of New York City want, then they should be allowed to elect the leader, the mayor that they want. The other thing I'll say is, look, as we know, our government, whether we're talking about on a local level or a federal level, is bureaucratic, and there are checks and balances baked into the system. I think people are acting as if this one mayor is going to unilaterally be able to do all these insane policies. I would be shocked if he would be able to even implement like a quarter of the policies that he's trying to implement. So there's that. But one other thing I want to note, Americans right now are really drowning, not just with the inequality, but how that inequality manifests. It manifests in things like an insane amount of debt. Consumer debt in America right now is at record levels, $1.2 trillion. The average interest rate, by the way, 21.4%.
That's criminal. It's loan sharking.
It's
if
insane.
you did that, like I could sue you for usury. It's a
100%.
third-degree felony.
And you know,
predatory lending.
I am so sick of our politicians pretending like they're going to do something about this. I remember Josh Hawley, a Republican senator, held all these hearings talking about how I'm going to cap, these credit card interest rates.
Yep.
Well, did he? Did he even fight for it? Or did he do his little photo op, Senate hearing to pretend like he's looking out for the common man? Yep. Our politicians are not looking out for us. Period. End of story. So when you have someone come out and actually focus on housing policy, even if you don't think that housing policy is going to work out, desperate Americans are going to be like, you know what? I'm willing to try something different. Yeah. And that's what explains what's happening right now. Yeah.
I'm actually, Anna brought up a really interesting point, and I think it is a backstop. If you're afraid of the excesses of socialism, all you got to remember that in America, we have a whole of government approach. So Kathy Hochul right now is a backstop to, if you like him or not, it's still the case. She's not going to raise taxes in New York. End of story. As you said, it's just not going to happen. So Mom Donnie has a lot of aggressive and ambitious dreams, but he needs the cooperation of the rest of the New York State government. He simply doesn't have it. And they still refuse to endorse him. Like the Democratic Party, the establishment right now has yet to, for example, people like Hakeem Jeffries, who represents New York, Chuck Schumer, they're still saying they're thinking about it, they're going to meet with them, but they haven't endorsed him. So how is he going to get the collaboration and cooperation that he needs to actually pass his policies?
What does Hakeem Jeffries support, though? Hakeem Jeffries is so useless. Like I don't know what he represents or what he supports.
He represents himself. Did you see the Photoshop
represents
photo,
the Democratic establishment, which is a complete and utter disaster right now. Like lowest approval rating for the Democratic Party, I think, in recorded history.
Since 2008,
yeah. It's absurd.
No, it's alarming.
Yeah.
Everything you guys are saying. I'm sorry.
your
Go ahead. I
point,
didn't interrupt you.
you guys
are what you're saying is deeply alarming. Whether he can get this stuff done or not, the fact that people are in this headspace,
they don't feel like they're being taken care
good.
of by our government. They're paying their taxes,
and they're getting nothing.
I'm going to transition after these final thoughts. I'm going to finish up.
I really don't like Bernie Sanders, but they saw the DNC steal the election from Bernie Sanders and give it to Hillary Clinton.
Yes.
They saw that with their own eyes. So they saw the hijacking of the delegates and the super delegates to make sure that Hillary Clinton won the election. And I'm no Sanders fan, but I will concede that reality that happened. Millions of Americans saw that. Millions of, especially younger Americans, felt deeply disenfranchised by the fact that they took it away from Sanders. Not once, but twice, arguably, because remember what happened in 2020? Pete Buttigieg, Amy Klobuchar, Beto O'Rourke all came together after Joe Biden came in 5th in New Hampshire to essentially give him the nomination because he got the endorsement of James Clyburn in South Carolina. Yep. And they said we needed a centrist to take it away from Bernie Sanders.
Talk about a bait and switch, by the way.
Exactly. And
God.
I do not like Sanders, but I'm still aware of the shenanigans that they pulled to keep him from power.
Ames, final thoughts?
I mean, I let them get what they vote for, and
that does seem to be.
Let's just see the way that it rolls out, and hopefully that this is a lesson, because apparently people are unwilling to learn from history. They're unwilling to accept the fact that like price caps often lead to shortages, guys. Like, that's just what happens. Shelves go empty. It's not a conspiracy theory. This is what happens in places like Venezuela. If it's only 5 grocery stores, then that'll be that.
Well, let's put the grocery stores aside. I mean, I think the price fixing on rent is not necessarily the best solution.
It didn't work in the 70s.
And look, I mean, we have rent control in Los Angeles, and what it has done, along with overregulation of like building new housing, is it has suppressed the construction of housing, which is what we need.
Yes.
You can do price fixing, but it doesn't stop the fact, or it doesn't actually deal with the fact that we have more people than we do housing. We need to build more
So
housing.
how do you incentivize builders? Do you give builders tax cuts if they provide affordable housing? I'm not saying that's the answer, but I'll give you an example of how this played out in the 70s, okay? Severe maintenance backlogs, dangerous living conditions, chronic mismanagement and corruption, and this is when they expanded New York's public housing system. They aggressively expanded it with a reliance on federal funding, and it begot all of those things. New York froze subway fares at artificially low rates to keep them, quote, affordable, right? But then revenue declined for the MTA, and when it did, there was no adequate subsidy to keep it afloat. It fell into disrepair, became unreliable, it was crime-ridden, it was dangerous. And then what, are you going to rob Peter and pay Paul? Like, are you going to take from ambulances showing up to make sure that MTA is free, and then you're chasing capital out? And we talked about it on the last show. So I guess it's like, you give them what they vote for. Thank you so much for watching Her Take. If you like the show, can you help us out by subscribing to the channel, clicking the notification button, sharing, commenting, joining the conversation? It helps us out a ton with the algorithm. We appreciate you.